Hi there, I'm Rob, co-host and producer of the Jim and Rob Overanalyze Movies live video podcast. It's the podcast for movie lovers who love to talk about movies as much as they love watching them. Recently, Jim and I dug deep into the 1967 version of Bonnie and Clyde. Now, for you folks who haven't seen this already, in this video, I'll go over the basics of the film, spoiler-free, including whether or not we think it's worth your time. So, let's do this.
10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
Recorded in the socially distant studios of the Rob Christensen Radio Network, it's Jim and Rob Overanalyze the Movies, the short version. Bonnie and Clyde is a 1967 crime movie romanticizing both the exploits of the actual Barrow gang and the relationship between Bonnie Parker and Clyde Barrow. Here's the logline from IMDb. Bored waitress Bonnie Parker falls in love with an ex-con named Clyde Barrow, and together they start a violent crime spree through the country, stealing cars and robbing banks. And literally not to mention, murdering a baker's dozen of human beings. The film was written by David Newman and Robert Benton, directed by Arthur Penn, and stars Faye Dunaway and Warren Beatty, who also produced the film. As for its production politics, could it have earned a reframe stamp? No. Was it union made? Yes. On the story end of it, did it pass the Bechdel test? No. Is it class conscious? Yeah, actually, when I first saw it, was first reacting to it, and you can see it in our live stream, I was a little more hesitant even to give it an honorable mention. But after interacting with folks in our chat and my co-host, I came around to the fact that this is a film that does have a class consciousness. Now, as far as the class analysis goes, that's. This film has Gene Wilder's first on-screen performance. He actually played a real person, an undertaker who was kidnapped briefly by the Barrow gang. When this movie came out, it was so hot, the then New York Times film critic, Bosley Crowther, gave it such a negative review, and it was such a popular movie, that the New York Times fired him over it, thinking he was out of touch. Meanwhile, Pauline Kael, who you could almost say is like the godmother of, mid to late 20th century film criticism, got her job, her permanent job at the New Yorker magazine because of her positive review of it. It was that much of a sea change. Speaking of sea changes, this movie, along with its 1968 Oscar nominees, Guess Who's Coming to Dinner, The Graduate, and In the Heat of the Night, heralded the arrival of what became called the New Hollywood, and a more realistic, sexually explicit, and graphically violent American cinema. Speaking of New Hollywood, if you're interested in learning more, I strongly suggest you check out Pictures at a Revolution, 5 Movies and the Birth of a New Hollywood, by Mark Harris, which goes into this remarkable year for American film. I just downloaded the Audible version at the recommendation of my co-host Jim and one of our live show chat regulars, Vlad65, and I am loving it. You'll find affiliate links for this book, along with a few others in what I pretentiously call Rob's Film Analysis Library, in the description below. Check it out. As far as our first thoughts on the film itself, I think Jim really said it best. So here's a clip from our live show.
Sure. This was a really, first of all, to play the movie, to watch the movie, this is something I had actually, along with my long list, aspirational long list on my PVR, I had taped this 2 or 3 years ago, and I just hadn't got around to it. I was sort of hoping that the kids would want to watch. My older kids are not, too young. old enough to appreciate this. I was hoping I could talk Carla into it or what have you. It just, sometimes it depends on mood. But as soon as I watched it, an hour went by before I even sort of realized, an hour went by. Like the movie goes down super easy. I mean, it's a lot of times you watch an old classic because you think it's good for you to watch, and that may hold you back a little bit. But once you actually get into it, you're like, okay, I know what everyone's talking about now. I had seen it when I was younger, but probably not enough to appreciate it. But there's so much in this. The stars are like Beatty and Faye Dunaway are just leaping off the screen. They're just amazing to watch. There's a lot going on. It's a kind of a fascinating story. I was watching American Experience earlier, which covered this, and I find that the tellers of this tale find it hard for them to be critical of them, even though they claimed over a dozen lives. So that's something else we can talk about. But yeah, it was just a really easy watch. Like it just, bam, you're there. And even that, the final scene, and not just the main part of the final scene, but just the elements that go into it. A lot of people are saying, oh, it's French New Wave. I thought it had elements of Hitchcock in it as well. And just the weird little details and the obvious symbolism, which I'm totally missing. He's carrying an apple. He's only got one eye thing in one lens in his sunglasses. Anyway, lots to talk about. But
absolutely.
I absolutely charmed. And the stars, like Faye Dunaway and Warren Beatty, are just crazy easy to watch. Anyway, fantastic. Anyway.
Yeah. Is it worth your time?
Yes.
Well, there's the short version. If you're looking for more, check out our deep dive. Jim and I, along with the best chat on the internet, really get into the look, sound, performances, and meaning of this flick, not to mention the filmed story itself, and whether or not we think the director did their job. Spoiler alert, he did. Now, if you can do me a solid, I'd really appreciate it if you could smash that like button. And of course, if you like this kind of thing and want to see more, don't forget to subscribe and ring that notification bell. Anyway, that's it. Fly, be free.
I've been in your waters. I came for sure. I've never been so close before.
Oh, excuse me.